The purpose of this webinar is just kind of help anybody who is trying to break ground with their business on social media or in their personal endeavors to reach out, find their audience on social media, and be able to target their audience, communicate the message, and basically get traffic and leads to their business. And so we're going to go through kind of the basics. This is going to be a 101 course, so we'll kind of hit on most of the basics for each of the five main social media platforms. And then we'll kind of touch on a few of the more advanced topics, but we'll kind of save those for another time. First of all, this is hosted by Nuvi. Nuvi is a social media analytics and monitoring platform. It's a wonderful, wonderful piece of software that really lets you dive into kind of the mentions of your brand or of any keyword that you want to mention across the world, especially on a bunch of different social networks like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc. As you can see, this is a cool little screenshot from there. It is a very beautiful piece of software, and I would encourage you to just take a look at it. As for who I am, my name is Darren Faber. I'm the director of social media at Foxtail Marketing. We are a full-service marketing firm that kind of specializes in B2B SaaS, but we do work with a lot of other companies around the country and around the world from all sorts of different industries. So I've been working with Foxtail for about 2 years now, and I strategized and worked on ad campaigns for dozens of companies. And a large part of those strategies don't only include the ads, but also include all the things that kind of go along with it, the content, the email, and the organic side of the social media as well. And so that's a little bit about me, and I kind of want to get to know you guys a little bit as well. So I've put together a little poll here. We'll see if those kind of work out. First of all, I want to know where you guys are located. Kyle, are we seeing the poll on your screen? Okay, perfect. So yeah, go ahead and select where you're located, and I'll just wait for just about 30 seconds. Everyone can kind of put in their answer, and we'll kind of go from there. Perfect. It looks like we've got about 90% of people who have voted already. Perfect. So I'm going to close this and share the results. So it looks like of everyone here, not surprisingly, most of us are from North America. Time zone obviously matches up really well. 7% from Europe and 2% from Africa. That's pretty cool. Australia and Asia are probably sleeping right now, so that would make sense for them. All right, I'm going to hide those results and kind of get to know you a little bit more. The next question is, I am a something. Are you working with an agency? Are you working with a brand? Are you working for your own project? Are you from some sort of educational institution? And this kind of question will help me to guide the conversation further to the people who are more prevalent in the audience, and hopefully this will help you out a little bit more. Okay, perfect. 90%. We'll close that poll. So it looks like about 56% are from agencies. So cool. A lot of marketers from agencies are here. 21% from brands, and a bunch of the other people as well. So that's awesome. So I'll kind of cater my message toward agencies and clients, but at the same time, that also applies to brands and to everyone else as well. And then the last question I had is in regards to which platforms you guys are interested in. So I'm going to open that one up real quick. Okay, I'll just give it just a few more seconds. Okay, cool. I'll close that. All right, cool. Not surprisingly, Facebook is number one. It's kind of the best of both worlds for both B2B and B2C companies, followed by Twitter, And then Instagram, LinkedIn, and then Pinterest is the bottom one. So I'm guessing that a lot of you are probably working with B2B companies, or not so much at the e-commerce side of things with the Pinterest side, but we'll kind of touch on all these anyway. I just wanted to get a better feel for kind of what you guys were interested in. So let me hide that real quick, and we'll kind of just dive in here. Let me just represent. Okay, perfect. So the big question is, why social media ads? Are they effective? What is the reason for us kind of pressing on this particular topic? The very first reason is that your audience, everybody's on social media. Your audience is there somewhere. Whether they're on Facebook or they're on LinkedIn or they're on Instagram, that kind of is up to what your business offering is. But regardless, your audience is there. It's pretty guaranteed. Also, it's a fairly inexpensive medium for advertising. Traditional methods of advertising, billboards and TV and those things can be very expensive, and social media ads relatively is very inexpensive, especially if you do it right. And kind of what the goal of this webinar is to help you learn how to do that right and kind of push down the cost of it while also gaining better results. Another reason is that targeting is easy on social media. The targeting tools on all these social media platforms are so robust that it makes it pretty easy to kind of pinpoint exactly who your target audience is. If you have a buyer persona and you have a pretty good idea of who you want to target, chances are you can probably get pretty darn close to that through the social media targeting platform, the tools that they have. And the fourth thing is that it's easier to build your brand. Social media is so widespread, but also so tight-knit that it's an easy way to kind of get your brand name out there and kind of get people to start talking about it, and build that up without having to reach out to different markets each individually. You can do this all at once on the internet through social media. And so these are kind of the four main reasons I can think of. I'm sure there are others of why we should do social media advertising. So what are the keys to success to social media ads? Obviously, one of the biggest things is the ad itself. What goes into an ad that makes it good? What kind of things are we looking for to include in there that will increase our conversion rates and our click-through rates? The second thing is the targeting. The targeting is, if not more important than the ad, just as important as just the message is. So if you have the right message, but you're targeting the wrong people, it will probably still not be as effective. So the ad itself and the message that's in there and the targeting kind of go hand in hand, because the message needs to match what your target audience is. The second thing is the budget or the bid. How much money are you willing to spend on social media ads? How do you want to bid on that? And what kind of is the strategy for your spend, and how do you get the most bang for your buck? And the fourth and final thing is what happens after the ad. And that's a very key component, because if you're running ads and the ads are doing great, but nobody's converting on the back end, then the ads really aren't that effective, because the goal is to get more business or more traffic, unless you're just trying to get some branding and brand awareness on that front. So those are the four main components of what you need to be successful with social media ads. So we're just kind of going to crawl through those real quick. So here's the anatomy of a social media ad itself. You have the ad copy at the top. So this is a Facebook example of it. You have the ad copy at the top. You have the image, which is probably the most important piece of the actual ad itself. You have the headline. And some ad platforms have a secondary copy or preview copy that you can add in there as well. And then the call to action is also very important. In this particular instance, there's a button that you can add to the ad itself that has the call to action on it, but the call to action really could be anywhere on the ad. You could put the call to action on the ad copy, or in the headline, or in the secondary copy, or even on the image, or preferably you could have it anywhere on the ad in combination with each other, right? So here's another example of an ad from Twitter. Again, the ad copy is at the top, you have an image, the headline is underneath, and there's a call to action there, learn more. And this is going to be true across all the different platforms in various stages. They all have an opportunity for you to provide some ad copy, provide an image, and have calls to action there to try to drive that traffic through the ad to your landing page or to your product page or wherever you're trying to get them to. So the very first and again the most important part, in my opinion, is the image. And the reason why this is so important is not necessarily because it communicates your message, but it's what gets them to stop. If you think about how you are on social media, you're usually scrolling through until you find something that catches your eye, and then you stop and then you read about it, right? So the whole purpose of the image is to get someone to stop and think to themselves, what is this image about? And then they read your ad copy after that. So the key to a good ad image is that it's high contrast. There's bright and dark colors within the image. It's more eye-catching that way, but also that it contrasts from the stuff that's around it, right? So if you're looking at your Facebook feed, you got there your whites and your blues, and you got a bunch of copy and a bunch of posts, and people are posting on it. You want your image to stand out from the page itself and have that contrast from the page as well as from within the image to get that eye-catching look. If you're doing e-commerce or having any sort of product in your image that's a brandable image, you really want it to be high quality. This is the first view you have or that a customer has of your product, and you want it to be as sharp and as high quality as you can make it. The third thing is it needs to be relevant to the copy. So in this case, the image itself isn't necessarily relevant to student loans, right? A tunnel with a road going through it is not relevant to student loans, but they made it relevant to student loans by adding the copy into the image. There's a light at the end of the student loan tunnel. So that's one strategy you can do, is you can actually create your messaging around the image you find, or you can take a branded image or find something that matches the messaging you want and apply it that way. And that leads to the fourth thing is the branding is optional. For instance, this image doesn't really have any branding. It doesn't have the logo on there. In the bottom left-hand corner in really tiny writing, it has their brand name on there. But some people love putting their brand on there, and some people don't. Either way, it's worth testing out. And the other thing is that there's minimal text. You can see here that there's really only one sentence and then a call to action here at the bottom. And when building a Facebook ad especially, you're only allowed a certain amount of text as a percentage of the image as a whole. So you really want to make a very succinct point if you are going to add copy to your image, and make it count. I mean, it can be very powerful, and on a lot of the social media platforms, it is probably one of the most important parts of the image. For instance, on Pinterest, it's very rare now that you see a Pinterest image that doesn't have copy or some sort of benefit or call to action on it. Same thing with Instagram. Instagram ads either they're a video and they're moving, so you kind of catch their eye, or there's some sort of copy on there that will make it so that you can read that, because the copy underneath that ad is so small that people might not notice it. And on this front, for those who are asking, how do I customize that, or how do I brand my images? Canva is your best friend. It's a free tool. You can pay to upgrade to get some cool tools like some magic resizing is what they call it, if you need to resize your ads between different platforms. But basically, Canva is an easy way for you to upload an image, for instance, this food image, and then add like that circle with the free trial in it, or a logo or something like that. Canva is an awesome tool for making sure your images are spot on and the right size for your different ads. I would recommend looking up an image ad size template. There's tons of infographics and resources that tell you exactly what sizes are right for each different platform. Look one of those up, and Canva has it for you. They'll ask you, what kind of ad are you creating? You click on it, it creates the right size. You add your image, you add your branding. It's perfect. It's a great tool to use. The next part is the headline. The headline is usually a little bit bigger than the rest of it. And especially in Facebook, here's a few headlines that are there. It's clear, but it's succinct. Obviously, there's not a whole lot of room there. So you need to make sure you make your point in as few characters or words as possible. And really, there's a few different types of compelling headlines that you can use. And there's no right answer as to which one works better. You kind of have to test them between each other. For instance, the top one, subscribe to the New Yorker, is a call to action. Like, that is an action verb, subscribe to the New Yorker. And so that's kind of the approach that they got to. For Slack, they decided to add a benefit, make work better. It's a little bit vague on that, but everyone knows what Slack is, and so they can kind of get away with that. But they've added a benefit. And then Dollar Shave Club, it just kind of has a cool tagline. Dollar Shave Club, the smarter way to shave. And that's it's catchy. It's something that you'll remember. The other way you can do that is to have some sort of offer, like takes 40% off if you sign up now. That's a great headline as well, because it gets people to kind of dive into that and take an action. And you need to make sure that this is all relevant to the audience. So we'll kind of get over to audience targeting later on, but it's always important that whenever you're writing copy for your ads, that you have your specific audience in mind. You don't want to go too broad because then you're kind of not really resonating with anyone in particular. You want to make your headline and all your ad copy very relevant to the audience so that you are talking to them directly. And if you have to do this a few times for your different audiences, do it. Create a few different campaigns. It's easy to copy campaigns over and just switch things out a little bit. Make sure that everything is relevant to the audience. Okay, and that brings us to the ad copy. The ad copy is kind of fun because it gives you a little bit more leeway. Usually there's apart from Twitter, which obviously has a character limit, it gives you a little bit more room to be more creative. So for Dollar Shave Club, their brand voice is more fun. And so they say, it's 2016. Who says a lady's razor has to be pink? And they continue on that. And it's catchy, and especially for women who are obviously the target on this one, or maybe men who are giving women gifts, potentially. This is kind of a great matching brand tone of voice without being too long-winded and really telling you why should you care. Why should they care? Well, it's just a few bucks a month, so try it now. This Oyster ad, there's over 200,000 ebooks. That's why I should care. I can read these ebooks for free whenever I want. And the whole idea of the whole world is your oyster, it's kind of catchy as well. It brings that value prop to you. All right, and then the call to action. This is an example of a Google ad where that uses a whole bunch of calls to action right in there. Like I said earlier, these can be inserted anywhere from the button that's there, learn more, to the ad copy, get started with $300 in credit. And then the headline, build what's next. And then even the image has one, get $300 to try Google platform. Everywhere on the ad is a call to action. Everything's trying to spark you to action. I would suggest using the pre-made buttons. So Facebook and Twitter and Instagram all have buttons that are pre-made. There's a drop-down list. You can choose learn more or shop now or visit the site or like the page, or there's a whole bunch of different buttons you can choose from while you're creating your ad. And so go for it. Try them out. See what works best for you. Usually there's one or two that really fit with what your offer is, and I would go with one of those. All right, finally the targeting. So once you have your ad creative done, you're going to want to make sure you have your target audience. And there's a few ways to target that are across the board. I'm going to get into the different ways to target on each of the platforms in a minute. But for all but LinkedIn's a little bit behind the other ones in some of these ways to target your audience. But the first one that I think is a little bit underutilized is remarketing and retargeting. So basically what that means is you can, and these platforms provide a piece of code that you can put on your website that tracks who goes to that site. If they're logged into their Facebook account or they're logged into their Twitter account and they go to your website, that social account will track them and you can then advertise to them afterwards. So these are all people who already know who you are. They've been to your website, they've taken some sort of action, and you can kind of re-engage them with a remarketing ad. And you can do that on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram. Now, Instagram and Facebook are kind of together because Facebook owns Instagram now, but they all work the same. So you put they call them pixels on your site as soon as possible so they can start collecting that data, and pretty soon you'll have a pretty good audience of very targeted people who had interest in your site before to advertise to, and hopefully to re-engage them and to bring them back and hopefully turn them into a customer. Another way of doing this is with email audiences. So if you have an email list of any kind, you can upload that email list to Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Instagram, and it will match those email addresses to known accounts on those platforms. So if I have a list of 500 people and I have those emails and I upload them to Facebook, Facebook will parse all those emails and track them and say, okay, these are the ones that are associated with Facebook accounts. And because you have their email already, we're going to let you advertise to them specifically now. So again, another way of kind of remarketing to those people that you kind of already have a soft touch with, and kind of re-engaging them and making sure that you have the right message for them. And that can be done on all four of these platforms. The only one I can't of the big five is LinkedIn. All right, so there's a different targeting mindset, especially with the different platforms, if you're a B2B company or if you're a B2C company. B2B companies generally work better on LinkedIn is the big one for B2B, but they also work on Facebook and Twitter as well. Facebook is kind of the catch-all. Everybody's on Facebook. Facebook has the highest account number and engagement rate. And so for both B2B and B2C, Facebook works great. Now, B2C works very well on Instagram and Pinterest as well, because that's where people go in their leisure time. And the B2C companies are really trying to capture that leisure time money that people are spending on things that they want or things that they need at home. And so Instagram and Pinterest are big for B2C, and Twitter can sometimes work for B2C as well if you do it the right way or if you have the right message. And that's something you might want to test. Some messages and some offers don't work as well with Twitter, and some of them work amazing. So it's definitely something to kind of dive into. All right, budgeting. Budgeting is a little bit tricky depending on which platforms you're using. Some of them cost 20 times more than others, but the return on those is much higher as well, depending on who you're trying to target. The suggestions we have here at Foxtail Marketing and with Nuvi is to use PPC type of ads, paying per the click, because it actually takes an action. You get someone to your site for every time you pay money. The other option is the pay per mil or pay per 1,000 impressions, and it's generally more expensive to advertise by paying per impression, except if you're trying to do a branding or awareness. And that comes into play. You may see some ads on Facebook or Instagram that advertise like Netflix TV shows or other events or things like that really they're just trying to get their name out there. And the pay per impression way of doing that works great for them because there's not anything to click to afterwards. They just want you to see the ad and later go on and watch the show. But for everyone else who's trying to get people into the funnel and trying to get information and trying to get customers, a PPC approach is generally better. It's less expensive and also more effective. When you create an ad, you have to set a bid amount. So basically how it works is you're bidding against other people who are targeting that same audience, and the more people who bid, the more expensive it's going to be, right? So when you're creating the ad, these platforms will have a recommended amount that they think you should bid, and usually it's like a range of like $4 or $5 in between. Set your max bid at the upper suggested limit, and that might seem counterintuitive because it seems like you're going to be spending more, but really what that means is that's your bid amount, and it's going to keep bidding until you win the bid, basically. So if it doesn't get up to that max bid amount, you're not going to spend that max bid amount. You're only going to spend as much as it took to win the bid. And so if you set it up at the upper suggested limit, then that makes it so that you're guaranteed to have impressions and you're guaranteed to get clicks on your ads. If you set it at the lower limit, what will probably happen is you're going to get beat out by other people who are setting their max bid higher than you, and you'll get fewer impressions and fewer clicks, and your ad may not be as effective. And if your ad's not effective, then the platforms tend to stop showing your ad in general, or they hike up the price for you, and it's just all sorts of bad. So set your max bid at the upper suggested limit, keep track of it, and kind of keep an eye on that so you make sure you're not spending too much. But it's generally better to do it that way because you get more engagement that way. And then the other note that I have is to break up your budget into daily increments. All of these platforms will ask you what the daily budget is for that campaign. So if you have a budget of $3,000 a month, you have 30 days, that's going to be $100 a day budget that you're going to put into an ad account or across different campaigns, and it's gonna charge you by the day, not by the month. You can set it like a total budget amount for the month, but it's generally going to go by the day, and they'll look at it, and a lot of them will say, you may end up spending 20% more than your daily budget depending on how the clicks go. If your cost per click is $5 and your daily budget is $12, it might do 3 clicks and charge you $15 instead of meeting that 12. And doing it that way. So you'll want to keep an eye on that, but break up and think about your budget in daily increments rather than weekly or monthly increments. Now, the big question is, how do you keep the cost down? How do you make it so you still get effective ads without breaking the bank, right? And the key to that is called ad relevance. Several of these ad platforms have a score that they give you out of 10. And they say, this is how relevant we think your ad is going to be. And the higher the relevancy score, the lower the cost is going to be. The lower the relevancy score, the more you're going to spend. Now, some of these platforms don't have a relevancy score attached to it, but they all work the same way. If your ad is relevant, if you're getting the engagement that is good for you. They just want to appease the users that they have. So they want to show them ads that make sense to them. And so if you're providing that, if you're making relevant ads, your cost per click will go down and your engagement will go up. And there's several ways to do that. These 4 bullet points were pulled from Facebook and Twitter as suggestions for making your ad more relevant. Be very specific with your targeting. Make sure you know exactly who you're trying to message to, and craft that message around those people in particular. And don't be too broad, or else your relevancy score is going to go down, because it's going to apply to some people and maybe not others in your audience. That ties into the relevant image and message. Facebook has said that if you have a relevant image, that is probably the first thing to start with if you want to increase that relevancy score. And for just information, a relevancy score of 7 or 8 is generally where you want to target, or higher on Facebook. If anything below that, you might want to tweak your ads a little bit and see if you can get a little bit higher than that. It's not uncommon for an ad to start off high and over a few weeks kind of dip down and require a refresh, which is point number 3, refresh your ad, in order for that to work again. And refreshing your ad involves actually recreating the ad and starting from scratch. It's much easier to do that and have them rescore a new ad than it is to try to raise a low relevancy score ad from 1 or 2 position, right? And the last thing is just learn from testing. Test, test, test. Create a bunch of different campaigns. Try a bunch of different images with the same copy. Try the same images with different copy. Try the same ads with different audiences. Find out what works for you. Find out what the relevancy is to those customers. Find out what kind of engagement you're getting. And you'll find that eventually you're going to have a formula that you can use every single time you build an ad that will resonate with your audience. You'll know what audience you're trying to target, and it's just better for your brand in the long term, or for your clients' brands if I'm working for agencies. And it will just end up being better in the long term. All right, we're going to dive into kind of the different platforms themselves now, and kind of talk about what is unique to them. What are they good at? What can you expect? And what kind of tips and tricks are there for each one? And so Facebook's the number one because it's the most used, it's the most relevant for both B2B and B2C. It's great for e-commerce for various reasons. We'll kind of get into one of their ad types that is great for e-commerce as well. It also has the most robust targeting. It's a little creepy almost how much Facebook knows about you and allows you to kind of use things that you do on the internet and even off the internet, if it's able to be tracked, that they can use to target your audience. As far as the expectations for how much you're going to spend, this is kind of the range that you want to look at. A 10-cent click means you're super relevant ad. You're going to an audience that's not too broad but not too small, and everything's just perfect. If you're getting a 10-cent ad, you have an amazing ad, and you should ride that as much as you can until the relevancy scores down and your price starts going up, and then you should switch it out. Generally speaking, a decent ad will be around $1 to $1.30 a click, but you always want to have that quest for pushing that cost per click down, and aim for a 1% click-through rate. A 1% click-through rate is kind of it's a little bit above average. It's kind of where you want to aim. If you're below 1%, you might want to consider changing up your ad a little bit or your targeting, and seeing if you can push that above the 1%. It's not uncommon if you have a great ad that's getting a lot of clicks to have a 4 or 5% click-through rate. If you've hit the sweet spot, you have the targeting perfect, you have the messaging perfect, you have the image perfect, and everything's just great, and the timing's great, then it's not uncommon to have really high click-through rates of 5, 6, 7, maybe even percent click-through rates. But everything has to be spot on. Now, there's different ad placements for Facebook, and this is kind of an interesting subject, especially with the rise of mobile. So you can see here that the big space in the middle is your news feed. When you're on your computer and you're scrolling through your Facebook posts, this is what appears inside, and it looks kind of like a normal post. It appears in your feed, and you just scroll through just like you normally would. Same thing on the phone. You're scrolling through, it appears in your news feed, and those are the best ads because they don't seem overly conspicuous. They go with the flow. They just appear there. Hopefully your image is good enough to make someone stop and look at it. But it's not as annoying as, say, the sidebar ads, or the audience network is a network of apps and games and sites that Facebook has contracts with to show ads from their ad platform. So those are two options, the sidebar and the audience network, that are available to you, and you can try them out. but historically we found that they're not very effective. People don't really click on the sidebar ads, and they don't really look at the sidebar ads, unless a lot of older people do. And so if you're targeting a certain demographic that may have an inclination, foreign countries often will have people who click more frequently than others. And so it really kind of depends on your audience whether the sidebar or the audience network will work. But generally speaking, the newsfeed and the mobile newsfeed are the best places to advertise. I would really only select those ad placements when you're creating your ad. Now, the Facebook ad types. Now, there's tons of ad types. There's like 9 or 10 different ad types. These are kind of my favorite ad types that I've seen really work well. The first of one is obviously the post ad, just what appears in your newsfeed. You can do a regular image that links to a landing page, or you can do a video even that auto plays as you go through the feed, and that can get crazy engagement as well. It's a little bit pricier to kind of create a video, but it can often pay off because the engagement rates on these video ads are astronomical. For e-commerce, like I was saying earlier on Facebook, these carousel ads are fantastic. You can see here there's 3 different watches, and it's very intuitive what you're going to do. You're going to swipe over, you're going to view the watches. It kind of gives you like almost the whole inventory of items that you can select from. And the click-through rates on these are fantastic. Not only that, but it gives you a little bit of research as well. Which one of these watches is really resonating with this audience? Should we keep that? Should we maybe swap out another watch because it's not performing as well? And it really drives that kind of not only the conversion, but the data behind it as well. Another thing you can do is you can advertise for page likes. If you really want to have a good organic social presence on your Facebook page or really any of the accounts, you can run an ad that will get you page likes, and in doing so, you'll get a bigger audience for your organic posting later on. And that's kind of the investment you're trying to make, is you're trying to gather more people into your organic pile so that you can then post on your account and have that be shared to more people, and therefore not have to pay for ads later on, hopefully, because you have such a big organic audience that they're going to do the work for you, sharing it and liking it and talking about it with their friends. The other ad type I really like is the app downloads. If you have an app or one of your clients has an app that needs to be advertised, an app download ad is a good option to go. It'll take you straight, especially if on mobile, it'll take you straight to the App Store where they can download it. It has all the information on there. You don't need to build a landing page. You just have the ad go straight to the App Store and they can download it right there. It's worth noting that you should probably test this against a post ad to see which one's more expensive in the long run. But app downloads in the past have been successful for us. All right, Facebook targeting, again, is the most robust of all of the social networks. And here's the kind of the main categories of targeting that you can do. Number one is the custom audience. And this has to do with the email addresses, phone numbers, Facebook user IDs, app user IDs, as well as website visitors. So more of that remarketing, retargeting, email, phone number type contact information thing that matches Facebook users up with people who have taken actions on your website or that you have contact information for. You can also target by location, age, gender, and language. And their interests. Their interests and behaviors are kind of 2 that are really fun to play with in Facebook because there are so many different options. The interests kind of go off of what kind of action has a user taken on Facebook. Have they liked certain pages? Have they read certain posts? Have they liked different people's posts that are posted from certain pages? What are their interests there on Facebook, as well as extended beyond that? Did they visit this other publication that they might be interested in? You can target by people who like Forbes, or people who like any other publication, or people who like Skull Candy headphones, things like that. And the behaviors is kind of insane as well, because it kind of goes over your spending habits. Do you buy online? Facebook knows that. They know whether you're an online buyer or not. They know how much money you make. They know how many kids you have. They know whether you're married or not. It's crazy how much data Facebook has gathered over the years. And just from our Facebook posts and from our actions on the internet, and they allow marketers to kind of target people based off of all sorts of these different pieces of info. And so it's worth going in and playing with these and trying to, really narrow down your buyer persona. Ask yourself, what do they do for a living? What kind of money do they make? What are their pains at work? What are their pains at home? What is their family like? Where do they live? And you can kind of be as detailed as you want, and then go into Facebook and try to find all of those things in Facebook, and you'll be surprised at how many of those things you can target by, and really just narrow down that audience and have a very, very, very targeted message that can go to those people. Another thing you can do is you can target by connections, people who have connected to your page or other people's pages, or who have seen or liked posts that were from your page by a friend. And so in this way, it kind of allows you to do some competitor type marketing as well, because you can kind of advertise to them based off of other people that they might have liked. So if they like one of your competitors, then you can advertise to them and try to kind of steal their business as well, right? So that's a very brief overview. Facebook targeting is probably one of those social media ads 201 type of things that you can really dive into nitty gritty. There could be a whole webinar based off just the Facebook targeting. Now, the big question is, how big do you want your audience to be? When you're targeting on Facebook and on any of the ad platforms, it will give you an estimate of how many people you're going to reach on a daily basis, or that is total in the audience. And so the question is, how big do I need this audience to be effective? Do I need a really broad audience, a very large audience, or do I want a very small audience? And the answer is, it depends, right? If you're doing a branding or awareness type offer, you want a large audience. You still want it to be somewhat targeted to kind of the people you want to have that message sent to, but you want it to be bigger, because hopefully those people will share more, and you'll get more engagement that way, and your brand kind of gets seen more. Versus a small audience, if you have a very targeted message or offer that is only for a certain small amount of people, for instance, some SaaS companies might only cater toward small doctor's offices, and there's only so many small doctor's offices that are available. So they might have and within that small doctor's office thing, they might only want to be targeting the office manager. So the one person in the small doctor's office within only the Los Angeles area, or something like that. And that might be a very, very small audience of only 600 people or 2,000 people. But if their message is right on point and they're talking to that audience, it might be perfect for them. They might get the ROI that's astronomical, because they only spent enough to have 100 clicks, but of those 100 clicks, the message was so detailed to those people that they all bought. And so you kind of have to play with that a little bit, and it really is how targeted do you want your buyer persona to be? How many people do you want to bring into your business? What is the ROI of each person? If you're selling clothing, your audience is going to be much larger than if you're selling, Nuvi, for instance. If Nuvi is catered to only a certain type of person, a marketer or someone who wants to be on social media. Clothing is for everyone, right? So you kind of just have to gauge, what is needed for your exact offer. So there's not really any good answer to whether large versus small, other than who is your audience and what's your goal. All right, moving on to Instagram. Instagram generally has a younger audience. It's more efficient for B2C people, because most people are browsing their Instagram in their off time, in their leisure time. It's great for e-commerce as well. You can also do those carousel ads for e-commerce platforms, so you can kind of show a bunch of your different products. Because Facebook owns Instagram, everything is run from Facebook ads. So as far as kind of the targeting goes, as far as the way that the ads work go, as far as the types of ads that can be run, that's all going to be the same as in Facebook for the most part. Instagram ads aren't quite as robust with the different types of ads, but it's pretty much the same. The cost per click can range. Again, it's generally a little bit more expensive per click than a Facebook ad is, depending on, again, your audience. I would generally expect between a 50-cent to $3 click. $3 I think is a little high. You definitely want to kind of tweak your ad a little bit if you're getting a $3 click. But that's kind of the ballpark where you're trying to aim at. And you want to aim for about a 0.5% click-through rate. Whereas a Facebook post is a full percent. More people are scrolling through their Instagram feeds and not clicking on stuff than on their Facebook feeds. So statistics have shown about a 0.5% click-through rate is about average. You want to aim for more than that, but you're not doing terrible if you have a 0.5% click-through rate. Again, here's an example of an Instagram ad that uses the carousel. I think it's fantastic. They have different taglines for each image that you can click on. And in this case, they're all going to the same product. Whereas with the watches, they're all going to different products, and each frame took you to a different landing page. This one is kind of a continuation that it tells a story. It's more storytelling in this case. I think that's fantastic. The more story you can tell, the more emotional you can kind of drive that home, the better. All right, Twitter. Twitter is very limited in its targeting. It's a harder to target platform, and as such, people don't like to use it quite as much. It can work very successfully if you have the right offer or the right message, but other times it might not work very well at all. It's great for competitor campaigns because one of the primary ways you can target is by followers of certain accounts, and so it's easy to kind of target your competitors and kind of try to steal their business as well. Another thing that I didn't mention here was that it's very great for events as well. Most events will have a hashtag or some sort of identifier that you can use in your ad that will then identify to the people that this is for them, and it's easier to target that way as well. So most people who use Twitter that will actually click on an ad at least are B2B people. They're more people who are trying to be thought leaders in their space. And as such, a lot of them are decision makers. A lot of them are people who are higher up in their companies. The people who are, there are a lot of consumers on Twitter as well. They just don't interact quite as well as the B2B people do on Twitter. Twitter is also kind of about the same ballpark cost as Instagram is, about 50 cents to $3 a click. Again, you want to drive that down. I've seen Twitter ads as low as 20 cents a click. And so if you have the right message and you have the right targeting, you can really drive that down. And again, aim for about a 0.5% click-through rate on that. Now with Twitter, there's an interesting feature that you can see here on this ad is not a normal tweet. A normal tweet has your character limit, and the link itself is in that character limit, and it shortens it, and even the image takes up some of the character limit. In this case, there's like what we call a Twitter card, and it has the image, it has a headline underneath it, it even has a little link preview, and then the call to action, register now. And so when you're building your Twitter ad, it gives you that option. It gives you the option to build a Twitter card, or you can promote just a tweet that you've tweeted before. If you're building something fresh or you have an offer, use the Twitter card. Unless you've maybe had a tweet that went viral or viral, not necessarily hugely viral, but had comments and retweets, then you might want to promote that and see how much more you can get without having to tweak it. But with a Twitter card, it gives you a lot more real estate on the news feed. More people will see it. It gives you a chance to have a headline and have some preview text underneath. And it gives you more space up top to not include that image link necessarily, but also, it basically just gives you more to work with. And so I would definitely recommend using the Twitter cards. There's a bunch of different kinds of Twitter cards. There's website cards, there's app cards. And so you might want to kind of dive through there as well and kind of see what the different types of Twitter cards are, what they're good uses for, and go from there. The targeting on Twitter, again, is a little bit more limited. You can target by demographics, location, gender, language, that kind of thing. Outside of that, you have certain keywords, so you can do different hashtags or user profile names or just any word, really. It's a lot like maybe Google PPC ads that way, where you can choose a certain phrase or word that you want to target, and that will appear into the newsfeed of those people. Again, account followers is a powerful one. If you're Oreo, you might want to target the followers of one of like the Elf cookies, and see if you can kind of pick off some of those customers and see if you can get them to buy Oreos as well. You kind of cross promote that way, especially if this also provides not only a competitor type of feel to it, but you can also partner with people and target followers of a partner and kind of have co-branded campaigns that way. And so you can both of you can kind of tag team each other's audiences so you don't kind of get stale in your own audience. And then the other thing for Twitter is behaviors. Behaviors aren't quite the same as they are in Facebook, but behaviors here are good for, again, the event space. What kind of events do you go to? What TV shows do you watch? What networks do you watch? That kind of behavior is more what Twitter's tracking rather than, what websites are you going to or where are you spending your money, right? So those are kind of the main areas that you can target on Twitter. All right, LinkedIn, the big B2B giant. Now, obviously, LinkedIn is just for business people, so it's prime for targeting business executives, for decision makers, or just people who are going to influence those decision makers underneath them. It's a little bit behind as far as you can't remarket on it. You can't upload an email list to it. It's kind of subpar and on those fronts. But when you're trying to target a business person of a certain skill set, of a certain management level, it's golden for that. Now, the caveat for that is that it is much more expensive as well, because business people know that that's where business people go. So more people are trying to bid for those people, and as such, the bid goes up, and it's more costly to advertise on LinkedIn. But the return is usually much better. If you are selling a software or some other B2B service, generally the lifetime value of that customer will be much higher than a B2C product like a clothing line or like a headphone line. And so you are willing to spend more on the advertising if it's going to get you more customers that are worth more to you, right? So this is definitely not a platform for branding or awareness. It's not some way to just get your name out there. This is for hard-hitting action, for getting business people to talk to you and kind of start that sales process that oftentimes in business can last a long time, anywhere from 2 months to 2 years, depending on the product. Again, on LinkedIn, you want to aim for about a 0.5% click-through rate on these ads. And this is referring to the newsfeed ads. Again, LinkedIn has a couple different places you can advertise. One of them is sponsored content, which is what appears in your newsfeed. The other way is text ads, which, there is a little image there of your logo or whatever, but that's basically the equivalent of a Facebook sidebar ad. It's not as effective. People don't usually click on that. And so you really want to get into the native advertising of the newsfeed using sponsored content. And so that 0.5% kind of click-through rate that you're looking for is in reference to the sponsored content. All right, here's the targeting options for LinkedIn. The location is obvious. You definitely want to target by location if you're only selling to a certain area. But you can even target by the company name. People who work at this company. If you're trying to land a really big client like a Microsoft or like an Intel or something like that, maybe you want to create an ad just for that company. And you target people just by that company name, and you advertise to them with the messaging of, hey, person from this company, here's what we can do for you, right? You can do it by industry. You can do it by how big the company is. So if you're only selling to the enterprise or only selling to small or medium-sized businesses, you can target based off of just the company size. There's job title. Are you a VP of this? Are you or an account manager? What is your job title that you've put into LinkedIn? Job function, and this is kind of ties into what they know about different job titles. Do you do accounting? Do you do this? Do you do IT management? And your job title might reflect a function, but it gives you an alternate way to kind of target that, which kind of plays into the budgeting later, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Job seniority, where on the food chain are you? Are you C-suite? Are you VP level? Are you management level? Are you just entry level? Where are you on that? Are you a freelancer? That kind of thing. Skills are the skills that people put into their profile as, these are the things I'm good at, or this is what I've been endorsed as being good at. You can target by what schools they've had, what degrees they've gotten, what their field of study is. What LinkedIn groups they belong to is a powerful one, because professionals are networking with each other on LinkedIn in certain groups. So if you're having a hard time targeting people just regularly by their job title, maybe look for the groups that they belong to in LinkedIn and target the group instead. And then, of course, gender, age, and then years of experience. Now, the trick to this is there are certain ways to target on LinkedIn that will cost more than others. For instance, job title is probably the easiest way to target on LinkedIn, and therefore everybody's doing it. So it might be worth trying a job title campaign and testing it against another campaign they're doing job function instead, in combination with maybe an age or years of experience. And so you're not targeting the exact same thing that everyone else is and upping that bid. You're kind of going around the whole crowd and trying to peg your audience without actually targeting them the same way. And what that will do is drive your cost per click down quite a bit. And so kind of play around with your audiences, test them against each other with the same ads even, and see kind of what is working on that front. All right, Pinterest ads. Obviously very visual, skewed toward women because Pinterest is mostly used by women. There are quite a few men on there as well, but women are very predominant on that, especially when it comes to spending the money. The women wear the pants most of the time. They know what they want, and they're willing to spend money on it, right? So Pinterest is a gold mine for B2C products, for these cups, or for this lotion, or for this clothing line, or for this hairdo, even all those kinds of things. So it's really good for e-commerce. And the best part is you almost can't even tell that this is a promoted pin. You can see at the bottom, one of them was saved by Pinterest for Business. They have a board there that has a whole archive of their favorite promoted pins, but this was just an organic pin by them onto their board. You look to the one next to it, promoted by Zola Registry. That's the only sign you have that this is a promoted pin. It looks almost identical apart from the little promoted by instead of saved by. And so it's very native to the experience of Pinterest. And so if you have a great image there, if you have something that is resonating with your audience, it's going to get clicked on, it's going to get pinned, it's going to get shared. Now, there's two different ways kind of to target on Pinterest. One of them is by traffic. You can, again, that's a cost per click type of thing, where when anybody goes to your website, you'll pay, and that will generally cost more than the other way, which is the engagement rate. Now, the engagement rate will charge you based off of every repin, every comment. All of those things will be charged for, and so you kind of need to weigh out your options. Whether if you're doing a branding thing, you're going to want to do engagement because you're going to get more engagement that way. It's going to be shared more widely. Whereas if you really want to get people to an offer, to a landing page, to a product page, you might want to try the click-through rate traffic method. So if you're doing the traffic method, you want to aim for about a 1% click-through rate. That's pretty good. But for the engagement rate, 3+, anywhere from 3 to 10 even is, feasible when it comes to Pinterest. And that can drive your cost per click down all the way to 1 or 2 cents potentially. So, again, same principles apply. Target your audience really well. Get your message really, really targeted to those people, and it will just be better for you. So there's not as many ways to target on Pinterest as there are on the other platforms. You can target by location, language, what device they're using. So this is good for products that maybe only work on an iOS thing, or even like phone cases are very device oriented, that kind of thing. Gender obviously is a big one for Pinterest. And then you also target by interests or keywords. And those, they're not required. Pinterest will pull from your description of your pin if you don't fill those things in, but it's just another win for you, another way to kind of to put your message out in front of the right people. And then finally, the follow-up. Are you matching your ad to what's coming afterwards? In this case, Shopify says, are you looking for a change of pace? Sell your products on Facebook. And then you get to the landing page, and again, sell your products directly through Facebook. Make sure everything is consistent from the ad to the landing page or the product page, and all your conversion rates will go up from there. If you find that your ad is performing really well, you're getting good click-through rates, the cost per click is down, but they get to the landing page and they're not converting, there's probably something wrong with the landing page. There's probably something wrong with the consistency between what the ad is making the person expect to get and what is actually being offered on the landing page. So you're definitely going to want to take a look at that. And again, without a good follow-up, you can't have a good ad because you won't get the kind of engagement that you need. And then finally, don't forget mobile. 80% of Facebook's ad revenue was generated from mobile ads. So when you're creating ads on Facebook or on Twitter or any of these other platforms, keep in mind that almost everybody is browsing those things on their mobile devices. So you need to optimize for the mobile side. You need to optimize the follow-up, your landing page for the mobile side. Everything is mobile. So think about it that way all the time. It's almost to the point where we think about doing the mobile version before the desktop version now. And so we just, always remember that the mobile visitor is coming first right now. All right. So I'm going to open up to a few questions. I know we don't have a whole bunch of time. So I'm going to open this up real quick to the chat feature. Okay, cool. Let me see if I can find just a couple questions here, and then I'll try to respond to as many of these as we can. So can we have a copy of the presentation? Yes, absolutely. We will be sending this out in an email with the slides and with recording as well. We'll put it up on YouTube and make it on demand for anybody who wants that. Perfect. And then very interested in conversions from click-through. More details on that. So yeah, conversions from click-through rate. And I'm assuming you're kind of referring to kind of what happens after the click, getting those conversions from the click-through. So really, again, you want to keep that consistent with the ad. And the landing page is going to be either, it could be just your website. You could just be sending people to your website, and then you have to optimize your website for kind of the customer journey. And kind of what you have to do on that front is you have to put yourself in your customer's shoes. If you were that person seeing that ad and you click on it, what would you expect to see? And you want to deliver that to them, with a little bit of flourish, with a little bit of a pizzazz, right? So that it kind of catches them a little bit off guard, but pleasantly. And that can be done either by great design or by a better offer or by, a surprise promotion, 10% off or something like that, that really gets them to say, these people know what they're talking about. Not only that, but they're giving me a great deal. And when you do that and it's consistent with the ad, you're going to get more conversions that way. And you can track that through Facebook, through the Facebook conversion pixel. I think that's a more advanced level thing that you can research, through Google. But also just, most landing page platforms have some sort of metric system that you can use. You can go on Google Analytics and set up a goal for that. And so I would definitely kind of tie all that in. And if I didn't answer your question, please just email me and let me know, and I'll see if I can expound on that further. In Ads Manager on Facebook, does the relevancy score appear right away, or do I not see it until it's been approved? So you will not see it until it's been approved, and there's a minimum of 500 impressions before it decides what that relevancy score is. And at that point, it should give you a relevancy score, and you can kind of play with it from there. If it's a really low relevancy score right away, I would suggest scrapping the ad and starting over. Change the copy or the image and trying it again. If it's kind of middle of the tier, kind of wait it out a little bit and see if you get a little bit more engagement, and go from there as well. Typical budgets on a campaign basis kind of depends again on that average value per customer. Kind of what we work with most B2B type customers is to start out about a $3,000 a month overall ad budget. And that kind of spreads across, all the different social channels that we think are appropriate, as well as kind of Google AdWords, until we can kind of find something that really is driving ROI. And once you find something that has a positive ROI, that you're going to get this much for how much you spent, then you can just kind of ramp up from there. For some clients, we started out with the $3,000 budget, and now they've ramped up to a $15,000 budget, and they're getting tons of leads, and they're getting tons of business, and they're super happy about it. I'm very glad that we didn't start out with a $15,000 budget, because we would have wasted a lot of money. So I would start out small every time until you find out something that works, and then scale up from there. The optimal number of tests for the same campaign. So basically what I would do is in a campaign, I would only test one different variant or variable between ads. So if you have a campaign that's targeted towards a certain audience and you have ad copy that is going to resonate with that audience, but you want to try images, I would probably create 3 or 4 or 5 different ads with different images with the same copy, find out what works best. And Facebook will actually start showing the ad that is performing the best more frequently, and they'll kind of decide that for you. Then when you want to change something else, you duplicate that campaign and you change the copy and with all those same images, and you can kind of test it that way. So only one thing at a time really within the campaign, but then you can create as many campaigns as you want as well. I think within a campaign, I wouldn't go more than 5 different number of tests as far as like 5 different ad images, because then you just kind of get a little crazy and your budget gets spread too thin between them, and it takes longer to get the data. That's the harder part about testing ads, is that you only have so much money to go around, and you need a certain amount of clicks to kind of really know what is performing and what's not. And the more you spread that budget, the longer it's going to take to get enough clicks to kind of get that data, right? I talked a lot about PPC and CPC. Is that really a valuable metric today? I think it's incredibly valuable because it kind of shows you what you're getting for your money, right? So, and the cost per click, I think, is more for me an indicator of how well the ad is doing because of the way that these ad platforms are positioning things. So they look at things and they don't have a set number for how much your ad is going to cost right off the bat, but they know that if your ad is very relevant, that they want that ad in front of people because they want to provide the most relevant content to their users, right? So they're going to plummet that cost per click down, and it's a great indicator that your ad is getting where it needs to go and people are interacting with it the way you want it to interact with. So not so much as far as a cost per click goes as, on a budget constraint, although that's very important. It also is a gauge and kind of like a rating system that shows whether your ad is performing well or not, right? All right, the average spend for a B2C client, again, kind of depends on what your offer is. Shout out to you, John. You're awesome. Um, the average spend for B2C client, for instance, if I'm selling a pair of jeans and I'm only selling it for $30, my average spend is going to be probably lower, unless I know that I'm going to get more customers that way. So, and then for something that's maybe like a boogie board or like a paddle board that costs $1,000, you're going to want to maybe spend more on advertising in order to get that customer, because you're going to make more money on that customer. So we were working with a client that sold golf apparel, and their budget was like $30,000, and they made tons of money on it every month. We just refreshed the ads, we'd apply the budget, and they had a huge budget, and they could have gone even higher. They probably could have spent $100,000 a month and made tons of money. Whereas some other, we had some other B2C clients that had a modest budget of $3,000, and they did just great with it because what they had was so electric with their audience that it was being shared like crazy, and they didn't have to spend that much. So kind of an average spend for a B2C client, I'd probably start around that $3,000 to $5,000 a month range and kind of play with it from there, find out what works, and then scale up from there. And if it keeps working as you scale, there's no limit to how much kind of you can get from that, until you kind of saturate your audience, and then you kind of have to refresh, start from scratch again, all that kind of thing. What should our relevancy score goal be? 8+, higher than that. We just had a wildly successful campaign with a 7, but an awful one with a 3. What should my goal be? Personally, my goal is a 7, a 7+. Obviously I want a 10. That's my real goal. But if I have a 7 relevancy score, then I know I have a pretty good ad that's going to perform. And around a 5 or 6, I start considering, should I tweak this ad? Maybe I'll give it a little more time to get more data behind it. Is it on the upswing or is it on the downswing? And then anything below a 5, generally I would say, maybe we should try, maybe we should copy that campaign and try something different and see if we can get that relevancy score higher. But a 7 is kind of where I've seen that really takes off, right? So wildly successful campaign with a 7, that doesn't surprise me at all. It's right around that 5 up to 7 where things really start to kind of take a big upswing. Merging email lists with Facebook. Can you merge a purchase list with Facebook, or does it have to be a proprietary list? Now, the rules around purchase lists are always a bit muddy as far as everything you do with that list. So, every email marketing platform is going to say, did you purchase this list or did you get these organically? But every one of them also understands that if you purchase the list, you're still going to want to use it and you're probably going to upload it. It more protects them that way. I think the same thing kind of goes with Facebook. Is you definitely can upload a purchase list with Facebook. I'm sure they don't encourage it, particularly because you don't know where the source of those things are. But the good news with doing it that way is that it does match it with actual people. Whereas with a purchase list for an email marketing thing, you might get a ton of bounce rate, and your list might be worthless. At that point, doing it with the upload, you'll know whether your list is worthless right off the bat, because Facebook will tell you this is how many people of those people matched, and of those people that matched, you already know that they're in your target audience. Hopefully, because hopefully you've bought that list from a reputable source, as reputable as email list buying services can be, and you can kind of go from there, right? So I would suggest, if you have a purchase list, uploading it and seeing kind of how that goes, and you might find some benefit. But again, purchase lists are kind of sketchy to me. I don't really like working with purchase lists, but I've seen some success with it, and I've seen some things just not work and fall flat. So I would try it out personally. Okay, perfect. I think that's all the time we have for questions right now. If you have more questions, feel free to email me. My email is just darren@foxtelmarketing.com. You can respond to, I think, your webinar reminder emails, and it should come to me as well. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. I'll make these slides and this recording available to you, and we hope to see you again. We'll be having more webinars coming up in the month of November and December. We're going to try to get some more of the Nuvi customers there to kind of share their experiences with how to monitor Facebook and Twitter, and kind of what they do for a PR perspective, and kind of some of those other topics around social media that I think would be valuable to any company or any individual who's working in social media. So we'll be watching out for our emails. We'll be sending those out, And again, thank you for taking your time out of your day to attend this webinar. I really, really, really appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions, just send them my way.